And I don't know how that got into the public think, but there was no way on God's green earth that we would get lifelong immunity against a coronavirus.
There is a lot of mixed information out in the media about this. If you have gotten COVID, you develop the antibodies, but you suggest that there's still benefit from getting the vaccine in that situation. Can you explain why that is?
So when you get COVID, you're absolutely positively going to have an adaptive immune response if you're immunocompetent. And that immune response initially will provide a ton of antibodies, and the quality of those antibodies, that's what's left out of the conversation, is right after you're infected and you convalesce from it are awesome. They're highly protective and great for that first month and maybe for the second month. But there's a waning of the neutralized capacity of those antibodies, meaning as a proportion of all the antibodies that were generated by your body, the ferocity of neutralization of virus that may show up as the days go on wanes. And it wanes a lot quicker than an immunization, because an immunization by this vaccine will give you neutralizing capacity of the antibodies that are formed for a longer time. Now, how much longer is it? It ain't much, but it's better than natural immunity on the kind of the out months of this. Now, keep in mind why this isn't the same situation as, say, chickenpox or measles to some extent that gives you lifelong immunity, right? This is a completely different virus. Coronaviruses can reinfect human beings over and over and over. And our immune systems have a very specific response to that. So that's why you have to look at it as a collective. And that's one of the reasons that we can't get immunized right after we've had COVID. Because if we do, then we've got highly neutralizing antibodies already in our body, at least in the first couple of months after being infected and convalescing. So you wouldn't want to get an immunization there. It really doesn't work that way. You got to wait for a little waning of that neutralizing capacity to get that very specific kind of instruction packet to tell your body, hey, this is the type of neutralizing antibody you need for long-lived immunity. So that's something that's been it's kind of been presented as a conflicting idea, and nothing can be further from the truth, especially for coronaviruses and other similar viruses. If we think about like norovirus, like the cruise ship virus, the enteric virus that causes vomiting and highly communicable, not by aerosol. Now coronavirus, this is a respiratory borne pathogen with that sort of profile where we can be reinfected, and that kind of thing makes it even more of a challenge in terms of public health, in terms of control, and ultimately, which is kind of the subject.
I just want to clarify one last thing on the vaccine. So you're saying that the vaccine does not last forever. They're obviously recommending booster shots now. Based on your understanding of the technology, is it fair for me to assume that the boosters will be a regular thing? That will this be an annual booster? What do you say to that?
Yeah. So to your first point, the presumption of lifelong immunity or immunity that would sustain and kind of what we call the durability of the immune response was never to be lifelong. And I don't know how that got into the public think, but there was no way on God's green earth that we would get lifelong immunity against a coronavirus. Maybe under, different conditions, under a different virus, sure, but not under this. So that presumption is 100% wrong, which I love saying because usually everything's gray. The second is that we, and I say collectively, the scientific community, our world and how we think about this has only been with this virus for about 18 to 20 months. So even though that seems like a long time, it is not. In understanding how it's evolving to the human host.